Welcome back to Hardball. Well, Benghazi, the issue, dogged Hillary Clinton if and when she runs for president in 2016. Well, if yesterday's congressional hearing into the attacks was any indication, Republicans aren't going to let go of the issue. They say the White House has tried to block the truth from coming out. That's the Obama White House, and the former Secretary of State helped them do it. That's what they say. The focus seems to have mostly shifted, by the way, to Clinton now, not Obama. They seem to be after her right now, and these revelations yesterday had to do with what Hillary knew and what she did or didn't do during and after the attacks. For example, we now know that Clinton phoned the embassy in Tripoli the night of the attacks and spoke with the DCM, the Deputy Chief of Mission at the time, Gregory Hicks. Hicks also said that Clinton's Chief of Staff, that's Cheryl Mills, tried to intimidate him after he spoke with a U.S. congressman, a Republican, about the attacks without a State Department lawyer being present. My question today, what kind of a picture does this all add up to? Where are we headed with this? What's the state of play? Lisa Myers is the great senior investigative reporter for NBC News, and Jeremy Peters is a political reporter for the New York Times. So we've got two good people here. Let's try to figure out the facts yesterday. What did we learn yesterday that seems to be what you might call exposing the Secretary of State, something that brings it open to further questioning? Lisa.
I think both points you raised about the call to Greg Hicks at 2 a.m. Between the first and second attack. I think it's the Cheryl Mills' involvement in all this. There is no one closer, or let's say there are few people closer to Hillary Clinton and Cheryl Mills. And I think thirdly, we learned the reason that Ambassador Stevens was in Benghazi at that time, and that was because Secretary Clinton had planned to come to Libya later that year, and she wanted to be able to announce that there would be a permanent diplomatic outpost in Benghazi.
So what the Republican people, and it was the Republicans, it was a partisan organized event yesterday. Apparently talking to Elijah Cummings, the ranking Democrat, he wasn't part of the planning for yesterday. He was informed, he wasn't consulted, if you will. They have established that Hillary Clinton was involved in operations, that she was calling during the time after the first attack and before they knew what had happened to Ambassador Stevens. She was in a position of being the top officer involved in that matter, Secretary of State. Can they then go forward and say, wait a minute, she had a choice the minute she got on that phone, start giving orders. I want every military person in that area to go to the rescue right now. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how far they have to go. Put every person out there. He's an important ambassador. We care about his life. He's still alive. Maybe let's try to save him. Could she have done that? That's what I'm asking. Can't they make that argument?
They could make that argument. I think what the argument that they're more interested in making is that she and Obama have tried to cover up their knowledge of this as terrorism. I think that.
But how does that get to the issue of it's like no harm, no foul? Oh, political spin. Okay, so somebody, first time in history this ever happened, that a political party's tried to put the best face on something after a bad thing happened. But it didn't cause Chris Stevens to be killed. It didn't cause the guys being killed by the mortar fire in the second attack. It didn't really cause any damage except to Mitt Romney. And how is that going to offend the public?
Well, I don't think it has offended the public.
Right.
I think
if that's their charge.
Exactly. It's riled up a small part of the Republican base. You can't go to a Republican town hall meeting these days without people shouting Benghazi, Benghazi. I mean, this is really
they know what
resonant.
It means, these people yelling it?
They know what it means. But I think it's failed to catch fire in most mainstream middle of the road
What was
voters.
the harm done by that spin? If it was a spin orchestrated by somebody at State, if somebody at State says, well, let's not call it terrorism because that might be something we're not supposed to say right now 2 weeks before the election because we killed al-Qaeda. If that happened, worst case scenario, what's the big damage there to anybody?
I think what what Republicans would allege is that Obama illegitimately won the election because he covered up.
Because he spread the word throughout his bureaucracy,
yes.
Never say the word terrorism.
Exactly. This was weeks before the election. Right. It looks bad. Let's cover it up. And I think that that's why you see all these analogies to Watergate, because Republicans genuinely do think that this was malfeasance covered up to help the president in the final days of the election.
Well, okay, that doesn't tell us much because that's exposition of what they're going to do with it. I guess my question is, going back to this earlier thing, I'm amazed at we've all watched this. Secretary Clinton is very smart. I think almost everything that's ever happened in her head, she knows about it. And all the meetings by the review board and all the congressional hearings she's been involved in and whatever media contact she's had, she's never once voiced the point, oh, by the way, remember that 3 o'clock in the morning conversation I talked about in my campaign? I was a 2 o'clock in the morning conversation. I was on the phone in the middle of a crisis, and here's what I did or didn't do. We didn't know it till yesterday.
Well, first of all, in her congressional testimony, which is really her only sustained questioning on this subject. In her congressional testimony, she basically tried to slam the door on any further questions by saying, remember the dramatic statement,
So
what difference does it make?
Yeah.
This reopens, I think, the questions. I don't think we know yet to what extent this does or might damage Hillary Clinton. I think the administration's biggest vulnerability here is, first of all, how do you send diplomats into this dangerous an area to facilities that do not even meet minimum security standards?
Yeah.
How do you then reduce their level of security by taking away some of the military personnel that they have? And then how do you, when you know that these people are in trouble, not find some way to move heaven and earth to at least get
I'm with you on that one. If you're some of you cared about it, I think Hillary Clinton does care about her ambassadors.
Oh, I do.
You would put everything you had to save them. You'd say, well, wait, how many people we got there? What's the closest airplanes? What's the closest men? And where we got special forces? Let's go, 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 go. Let's go. Because it's happening right now, and she thought he might still be alive. But this other question of a courageous ambassador, which we're told Chris Stevens was, you're assigned to a country like Libya, which isn't quite stable, right?
Right.
It's a country that doesn't really have a government yet. And what we have for security forces are basically militias. And we have to set up ties, personally almost, in every case we go somewhere, with some local chieftain who's got a bunch of people with semi-automatic reference, and we got to say, can you watch our guy? Can you get us there and safe? Can you give us safe passage? And it's always hairy. It's always tricky and dodgy, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what Chris Stevens was doing. And that's part of being a secretary, an ambassador in a troubled area. How do we take away the danger in situations like that? We can't have an army sitting there.
No, but
we're not a colonial power.
No, but what we didn't have was a contingency plan. There was nothing in place that, okay, these guys are in harm's way. It's an incredibly dangerous situation, but it's important.
Well, isn't that for the ambassador?
But if everything
and you're arguing the ambassador tried to get that kind of thing set up and he was rejected.
No, I think he tried to get more security and he was rejected. Okay. But I also think there was no contingency plan or not even any forces in place who could respond at short notice.
This is why we're going to be talking about this besides the facts. Republicans clearly see now an opportunity to catch Hillary Clinton, who may well run for president. According to Fox News today, former Vice President Dick Cheney, who's somewhat partisan, met with House Republicans and suggested they may need to subpoena Clinton to get more answers to the Benghazi attacks. In other words, they forced her to testify. Marco Rubio today said on Fox also he tied the investigation to the former Secretary of State. Let's listen to, he's another smart guy. You may not agree with him, but here's Rubio.
The president was in the middle of his re-election. One of his talking points was that terrorism had been defeated and he had defeated it. What I think is sad is how many people are around the administration, including the former Secretary of State, Secretary Clinton, knew this to be the case and allowed this to move forward anyway. You would have hoped that people would have stood up and said, this is wrong, the American people deserve the truth. That didn't happen.
And earlier this week, Senator Rand Paul had some strong words, even stronger for former Secretary Clinton. Let's listen.
And I would go one step further. I think that her dereliction of duty, I don't question her motives, but her dereliction of duty and her lack of leadership should preclude her from ever holding any office.
Well, now we have a real clam bake going on here. We have a real battle of the bands here. Everybody on the right seems to be going after. I haven't heard from Ted Cruz yet, but they're all there. What do you make of it as a political story? This seems to be their main chance. They're not going to beat Obama on the budget, on guns, all this stuff. Immigration's too murky. Gitmo's too weird. It's more of a left-wing thing. Mm-hmm. So they're going to beat them, Obama and Hillary, two birds with one stone on Benghazi.
Right. Well, what the Republicans are trying to do is raise questions of Hillary's character, which, remember, this is what they did 20 years ago with the vast right-wing conspiracy that Hillary Clinton alleged her enemies were behind, trying to destroy her and her husband. Now,
is this like in the Republicans, like manual, go the character issue?
Yeah, I guess so. I think that where they have a trickier argument, though, is in actually proving what Hillary Clinton knew about the terrorist attack. And that's why you hear so much about the video. Was it the video that spurred this attack, or was it Islamic terrorists, and why are they covering it?
You're still getting into the question of spin. I think the only thing that matters to the American people, was anyone derelict enough to let somebody die who was a good guy? And I think that's an issue with most people. Humans, that is. Mm-hmm. Maybe not Republicans. Anyway, Lisa Myers, thank you. I'm just kidding. Thank you, Jeremy Peters from the New York Times. Up next.